All right, with me today, I have unquestionably one of the greatest guests that I could have ever asked for. He is the author of several published works of fiction. He's a featured writer and podcast host at Blizzard Watch, a warrior guru, a master of Warcraft lore, a dinosaur expert, and one of the toughest people you will ever meet. I'd like to give a warm welcome to the one and only Mr. Matthew Rossi. Mr. Rossi, welcome to Unshackled Fury. How the heck are you, sir?
I'm fine. Technically, I'm the third. So I'm not only am I not one and only, I'm the third. Like, they've had two others.
Well, you're the only one I've ever heard.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, if you actually Google me, there's some Italian race car driver out there making me feel bad about myself. Like, I drive other race cars, and apparently I talk like Mario, despite the fact that I'm actually Italian. I can't do the accent.
You're leading more lives than you ever knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so I have easily a million questions. Well, that's an exaggeration, but I have many questions that I want to ask you, and while the Warcraft questions are, I'm sure, what people have tuned in for and kind of the norm, I will get to those. I wanted to first ask you about your writing. I know that you have published 3 books, and they have kind of an interesting, side to them. They're speculative fiction. Is that? Am I getting that right?
Well, actually, technically speaking, the 3 books that most people know me for are speculative nonfiction, in that they're not nonfiction. They're not actually narratives. They're essays.
Okay.
And I have published fiction in other places. I've been in Postscript magazine and so forth. But the 3 books, Things That Never Were, Bottled Demon, and Atlas Atlantis, are basically collections of nonfiction. They're essays. Calling them nonfiction is kind of dishonest in that they are made up. Okay. Nothing in these essays is true, but they're not narratives. They're not like, John went down the street and saw a bowl of ice cream, but in the ice cream there were many eyeballs. No, they're not like that. It's just
right.
It's just, saying, hey, isn't this weird, and isn't this weird, and isn't this weird, and here's a weird thing you might not know about those 3 things that ties them together. And now that I've tied them together, I'm going to completely link that to this thing over here. And then, they're like, if you ever saw back in the 90s, James Burke had a show called Connections. Mm-hmm. And Connections was basically, he would start off on, this is the origin of the water screw. And by the time he was done, you were on a space shuttle. And he got you from water screws to space shuttles. He would connect them. Like, this changed this about, to use a real life example, people don't really think about this, but we wouldn't have had prohibition if not for women's suffrage. Mm-hmm. Women's suffrage, in fact, was very closely tied together to the anti-saloon league and prohibition. It was very much a women's political power issue. And we wouldn't have had prohibition end if not for the exact same forces. Women, again, very strong anti-woman opposition, very strong woman anti-prohibition opposition is what helped end it.
And can you, I guess for the sake of your books, what kind of connections do you make?
Well, I
would have,
if we were talking about my books, I would have then said, okay, now that you know that, I would have explained how the Fisher King was involved. Or like one of the best essays that I've written is called Noon Blue Apples, which talks about the phrase Noon Blue Apples, which is on a Templar monument in Scotland, and it talks.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a complete dunce when it comes to this sort of thing. So you're going to have to explain what exactly that is.
The Templars were an organization that existed in the Europe between like the 9th and 12th century. They were essentially a knightly order. And one of the things is that they were a crusading order. They were one of the groups that fought in the Middle East during the Crusades. And because of that, they were in a position to serve as kind of an international banking squad, for lack of better words, because people would go on crusade, they would deposit gold or wealth in the chapter house in France, and when they got to Jerusalem, they would go to the chapter house there with a note from the chapter house in Paris and say, hey, here's my note, give me my money. I didn't feel like bringing it all the way, so now, you understand the way it worked? Like they basically take, and as a result of that, the Templars served as bankers before we had bankers. And as a result of them sitting on this kind of wealth, they could give loans. In fact, one of the loans they gave was to the Kingdom of France, a big loan that the King of France did not want to pay back. So one of the reasons that the high the head of the Order of the Knights Templar was executed was because he was convicted of trumped up charges of devil worship because the King of France didn't want to give him his money back.
Now, wasn't this in a rather high-profile movie
It's
or
been
book
in a million
recently?
of them. Everyone pulls the Knights Templar out sooner or later. My personal favorite's the Cathars because the Cathars have like a ton of connections to like the Albigensian Crusade, which is the only Christian crusade where they actually only fought other Christians. Like they didn't even leave France for the Albigensian Crusade. They just went and like burned other Christians who just weren't praying right.
Oh.
The Cathars believed differently than, say, mainstream Christendom at the time. This is, again, around the 12th century, so you didn't have any Protestants yet. You just had the Catholic Church. But the Catholic Church wasn't shy about fighting with itself. Like, you know, they didn't have any problem with declaring, oh, those guys are totally heretics. Basically, the book, getting into this is literally going to take all night, and it would basically kill any chance of actually doing a podcast. So
that's all right.
I'll just say that basically the book is like, I look at history, I look at science fiction, I look at fantasy, I look at, popular novels, I look at obscure stuff from like, the time period, and I say, what if with it? I'm like, what if this was real? What if the Knights Templar, instead of getting, burned at the stake and their order disbanded, what if they built giant robots that were powered by steam instead?
Okay.
Stuff like that. What if during the War of the Worlds broadcast, Mongo invaded and Ming the Merciless tried to take over the planet Earth? What if a time traveler tried to go back to Sodom and Gomorrah to see what all the fuss was about? His time machine blew up, and that's why we think Sodom and Gomorrah were flesh pots of sin, because some guy blew them up by mistake with his time machine.
All right.
What if the Tunguska blast didn't happen? So stuff like, various back and forths. One of the better essays is one called Palanque, which is basically, I don't know if you notice this, the History Channel loves to do their ancient astronaut stuff. And the problem with the ancient astronaut stuff we see a lot, the Eric von Danikens and so forth, is they're always kind of racist. They're always like, how could these savage, non-white people, you fill in a non-white people that they use. How could they build these monuments if not for alien help? It's like, easy. No one ever asks, how did those savage Europeans build those mighty cathedrals?
And somehow the Nazis get worked into this, right? Because isn't that 90% of all History Channel programming?
They do a lot of the time, but a lot of the time it's just because the Nazis were pretty incredulous. Like, the Nazis seriously actually looked into Hollow Earth philosophy type stuff. They actually were like, okay, if the Earth is on the inside of a hollow globe instead of the other way around, then we could build a big mirror and shoot a laser across the way to hit England from here, couldn't we?
Yeah.
And if that were true, they could, but it's not true, so they wasted a lot of time. But at the same time, you got to give the Nazis credit. They built a freaking stealth bomber out of wood, and it worked.
That's the German engineering. Yeah. I hear a lot about that on the car commercials.
Did it. As much as the History Channel loves to, Nazi magic, at the same time, every so often, there's an actual... Hell, we wouldn't have the American space program if not for Wernher von Braun.
That is true.
But... Anyway, that's the book's basically like Palanque is one of my favorites because Palanque, I argue, what if the America, pre-Columbian America was in fact this incredibly advanced society where they mastered bioengineering, and the reason we don't know about it was because everything they built was made out of plants, like not wood, plants, like they grew it. If you grew all your real advanced technology, then and after it died, it would just decompose. Yeah, you're not going to get any evidence. Hey, we found some roots. That proves a lot, doesn't it, man?
This is deep.
So
this is deep. This is why we love you so much, because you're you're always thinking.
Well, this is just the kind of stuff the books are about. It's just I've also write fiction. I do write like actual narratives. I'm working on something right now, but in general, the books basically came out of me having more ideas than I could ever actually do a story with. Like. When I came up with the idea for Napoleon, like what if Napoleon on his deathbed had his mind transferred into a steam-powered robot that took over the world?
Okay.
I don't have a story for that. I just think it's cool. There's like if there was this giant difference engine with Napoleon's personality running in France somewhere, and that it was running like criminal empire or whatever. I just like the idea. I don't necessarily want to write the story of Robo Napoleon. Like for one thing, my biggest problem with a lot of stuff is that this happens a lot in fiction. It happens a lot. People tend to think about big people, figures. They dominate, but history is made up of small things. Like, one of the things that people don't really ever think about the way that they could, think about, like, right now where we are with, like, the war on drugs and drug prohibition.
Is that going well? I didn't even know that was still going on.
It's been not being won for quite some time. But the thing is that it's really built out of, if there hadn't been alcohol prohibition in the 1920s, you would never have gotten organized crime in the United States to the level you did. Because, and here's the real thing, the real kicker, is we wouldn't have had prohibition if not for the Ku Klux Klan and women's suffrage. Like, think about these two groups coming together and agreeing on anything, but they agreed on prohibition, and they had good reason. People often forget this, that prohibition wasn't popular just because some crazy people thought booze was bad. They were like, Americans drank hard in the 17 and 1800s. Like,
that's like your cleanest source of water. I think that's...
but the British had the same thing, but if you go look at English history or European history, they didn't have the same problem because they didn't have something that wasn't as common over there as it was in America. They didn't have distillation to the level we did. You know, Americans really jumped on the hard liquor bandwagon. Like, in Europe, it was something that happened rarely, and distilleries were like in families, and they got royal warrants, and they were very rare. Like, you didn't break out Scotch. Like, it's the difference between Scotch being something that, like, you know, people in Scotland in isolated villages might drink, or the king might have some, to in Kentucky, everybody had it. Everybody had bourbon or whiskey because we have corn, we have a still there. This isn't something rare that's only done in certain places. Literally everybody could do it. The first major revolt against the United States government by its own citizens is called the Whiskey Rebellion. And it's over taxation on whiskey. Because the farmers didn't want to pay it because they were all making whiskey. And the government was like, okay, like half the crop is going to this stuff. We got to get some control going on here. This is nuts. And that's been one of the things that America has always been this fascinating land of dichotomy where you've got all these historical, and that's the thing is we always look at the figures, the main figures, the the names like the Paul Reveres or the Benedict Arnolds or the Washingtons, but they're like being carried along by waves. And history is made up of these waves of movements and moments that, like, you start looking at them and going, could this have happened differently? Like, women's suffrage was a huge deal in the 1880s and onward because women had really been, like, were just sick, absolutely sick to death of having to carry all the weight of families where the husband would go out and get just drunk out of his mind. And that's the thing is, like, people would start it off in, like, when you look at, like, the history of America, like a farmer in America in the 1680s, he would come back and drink beer. Now, you drink, say, a liter or two of beer in a day, and you'll get pretty drunk. But you still have to stop and urinate because it's beer. You know what I mean? To get the alcohol content is at most, we'll say, like 10-12% at most. And that's a pretty high beer.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Now, hard liquor, you're looking at alcohol content 40%, 50%, sometimes 60%. Especially since
that moonshine gets up there pretty high.
Stuff was home distilled. So that the tradition continued of drinking that much, but the people were now drinking that much of something that was 3 times as potent. And it did have this really amazing social effect. It affected women's suffrage. It affected race politics, not just the easy ones either, like slavery and so forth. It affected, like, immigration politics. Like, people were coming in from Italy and Ireland. Italy and Ireland had completely different drinking mores than the United States did. They drank,
still do,
and they drank, but they didn't drink hard. Like, they'd have a glass of wine or some beer. And they also brought in different religions. So it was the people who were Catholic, or not versus, like, the American South, which was very strongly Protestant, Methodist, Baptist, so forth. There's all these different forces fighting, like, in this period of time, and we forget that it was the people, not these individuals who looked to be in charge. Like, you look at, like, to use an example from the American Civil War, you look at the Civil War and you see the personalities. You see Lincoln, you see Jackson, you see Robert E. Lee, and you don't see all the people that had to make up those armies. You couldn't have had an army without, the Army of Northern Virginia at one point had like 75,000 people in it. Those people, you couldn't have had the Civil War without people to back it, to make it, to drive it, to make it go.
Very true.
And it's that, those weird combinations of forces. People always talk about the Civil War, and they actually say, like, what if the South had won? The fact is, barring a direct nuclear strike, the South was never going to win the Civil War. And yet they signed up to fight it anyway. That's the thing, that's not a case of, as much as you can argue the causes all you want. I have my own beliefs as to what they are, but they're not important right now as much as the belief is. Because the belief, that's the thing that always drives history, is people making decisions, individual people making decisions, and those decisions all kind of, like, for lack of a better word, they flow to the sea. And that's one of the things I love about fiction, is that you have the chance when I write the weird essays, I have the chance to look at history and say, what if and why not? That you can't really get out of real history. You take a history course and ultimately you stop and look at these things, but you can't really say, well, what would happen if X? Well, we don't know. We never really know. We're never going to know what would actually happen if King John had been a stronger king. We're never going to know what would have happened if Egypt and the Hittites didn't fight, or and instead the son of the king of Hatti had married the daughter of Tutankhamun's wife.
You're going way too far now. My knowledge of history goes back about 13 days. So you're digging real deep here.
Just an illustrative state, though. These things are. I wrote the essays because that's the kind of stuff I like to play with. It's one of the things that always got me in trouble in college. Was that I was always much more interested in what if than what was. Because you don't have to actually. This is an argument I always used to have with my teachers too. You don't, in the modern world, you don't need to know what happened. You just need to know how to find out what happened. Like we actually live in a place like. If you look at how information used to be transmitted, we used to transmit all our information orally. Like you'd know something because someone told you it and you remembered it.
Right.
Then we developed writing. So now you could store information externally from yourself. So you didn't need to know how many bales of hay you had. You just needed to know where the tablet with all the bales of hay was, or how many head of cattle you had, or whatever. Cities began organizing amongst these principles. Like there would be, reckonings and there would be a guy who'd come along and take inventory, and there'd be taxation and all this stuff. You can have abstract money systems once you have the ability to record information outside of yourself. So it actually goes from genetic information storage, DNA, to brains that can store information inside them, to brains that can abstract out and store that information somewhere else. And that leads to books, where now with books, you don't have to relearn how to fold steel into weapons. We already know how to do that. That guy wrote that down 500 years ago. So all I have to do is go study what he knew. So no longer do I have a blacksmith who has to go and learn the laborious art of blacksmithing from another blacksmith. And who barely gets, he doesn't get to improve on his predecessor's work because he has to spend 20 years just learning how to be as good as that guy. Right. Now we can store that information externally, and so we have libraries. Civilization starts building these larger and larger centers of for lack of a better word, for existence. You can go to cities, you can have places. Then you start developing things like the telegraph and the telephone. And that's amazing because here's just one example. You are a farmer in 1930s America. You fall down and break your leg. If it was 1830s America, you die. Or you have a broken leg for a while and there's nothing that can be done about it. 1930s America, you call town and the doctor comes out. That's an enormous, almost seismic shift. Because even taking automobiles out of the picture, which he's going to have because it's 1930s America, he could have gotten on a horse and ridden out to you and be there a lot sooner than never, which is where he was going to come out before, because why would he? He didn't know you were hurt. That kind of thing, the ability to transmit information immediately, starts changing everything about how we develop as a culture. And it's as easy as looking back at 1990s movies. Go watch a movie from, like, say, 1991 or 1985. And one of the things that you'll notice is that never happens is They get something happens and they're isolated, so they take their cell phone out and figure out where they are.
Unless they are carrying around one of those brick phones.
Yeah, even then, that does not have a GPS in it.
No, not the last time I checked.
And that's the thing. It's like, we actually live in a continuously evolving culture that changes so fast that we don't see it.
And you're somebody who has contributed to this culture, and I just want to get back to your books here real quick. Now, so if I get this all correct, you essentially have gone in and you have sort of had these thought pieces about times in history where things have happened, maybe looking at them with a different sort of skew or a different bent.
Or
at what
fiction,
point do you
Sometimes it's just straight up fiction. Like one of my favorite ones was one of my absolute favorite ones was literally what if every radio pulp character teamed up to fight Mongo? Like seriously, the Shadow, Flash Gordon, Doc Savage, the Spider. What if they all teamed up?
And how do you go about publishing something like this? I mean, at what point do you get enough written material where you say to yourself, "This is something that I want to put out there"? Because that's a brave, risky decision to make, to put something out there for other people.
Yeah, the first book was actually published by Monkey Brain Books, and Chris Robertson, who runs Monkey Brain, basically contacted me. This was years ago. This was 2003, 2004, and he knew of me from some blog writing I did and some other stuff I did. Like I wrote for Pyramid Magazine a couple times, and he said, hey, I like what you're doing, and you talked once about starting your own press. What you ever thought about publishing what you're doing? And at the time, you really didn't it wasn't like it is now, where you can just put an ebook on Amazon. Amazon existed, but it was very much not like
it was not what it is now.
So I mean, he and I talked for a while, and he wanted to publish some stuff, and I had some essays ready to go, so I, let him publish them. They didn't sell really tremendously. I mean, it's not like a huge secret that this is a very niche thing to do. My writing is never going to be tremendously popular, and I've accepted that. I wish it could be like self-supporting. That'd be great, but I'm never going to be Stephen King. I'm never going to be somebody who I am, and and I'm fine with that. I don't really have a tremendous problem with it. But in terms of like how I published the later two collections, basically I just kept writing stuff. Like an idea would happen, and I just wrote it. It slowed down a lot when I got the job that I had in 2007 at the site, which I won't mention. But because I was writing a lot of stuff for that, so that took up my energy.
Well, and that was one of the questions that I had, was that there was almost a 10-year break between your first and your second book. So was it just other job duties that got in the way of that, or?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'll just admit it here, and people can do with this information what they want. I have really bad depression, like very, very bad depression. It's at best, like my best times, I'm still not tremendously great. And it's the thing about depression is people think depression means you're mopey and sad. And for me, it isn't that at all. For me, it's like I go through periods where I can't feel anything. Like my emotions are like deadened. And then I have other periods where you're easily frustrated.
Sure.
Or like something that shouldn't bother you at all drives you into an absolute frenzy of rage. And part of that comes from my, my life, my upbringing, how I grew up, and part of that's it's just there. It's a condition.
Well, and that's something that you're very honest about, and I know for myself, and I think for a lot of people that either read your work or follow you on Twitter, that's something that I know I certainly appreciate about you, and I think a lot of others do, is that you are very honest about your life and what goes on in your head, and I think you're really to be commended for how open you are with these things and with subject matter that is often very misunderstood.
Oh, I don't know if there's anything to commend about it, but yeah, it's just so. I mean, from between the first book and the second book, I mean, I'd written a lot of the essays for the second book way before I published them. They were just sitting around. They were just like laying around dormant, and I wasn't doing anything with them. I was doing the work at the site that I can't mention anymore, and I was pretty depressed about stuff. And plus I got married and moved. Like I met my wife. We met around the time just after I'd published the book. And I'd had a bad experience just before she and I met. So she and I bonded, and we actually used World of Warcraft to keep in touch. I actually originally she and I had played Neverwinter Nights together. Because I would run like Neverwinter Nights scenarios, and you know how you could dial into other people's games back then.
I remember.
Yeah, so she would play the ones I had run. We used those to stay in connection. And then she was like, "I'm playing this game, World of Warcraft, in the beta, and you should totally play too." And after a couple of abortive stints, like I tried playing a paladin for a while and that didn't work. And eventually I settled on the warrior, and we would use WoW to stay in contact because she was living up here in Canada and I was living in Seattle at the time. A lot of people think I'm Canadian, but I'm not. I'm actually from New England. I'm an American. So that's often very hard for me because I'm way too rude to be a Canadian. I don't mean that like in a bad way. Canadians have a lot of really great attributes, and
so you're keeping up our reputation abroad.
It's just I don't even know if I'm rude so much as I'm very. There's a sort of directness Americans have, but at the same time we have there's a politesse to American like day-to-day life. Like you know how we are about personal space. Like we try to give each other room in a supermarket.
Well, most of the time.
Yeah, you don't want to crowd people if you can avoid it. You know, if you're in the aisle and someone else is coming, you try and like push out of their way.
Oh, I've elbowed at least a couple of old ladies just to get them to back off. Sure.
Yeah, Canadians don't do this. Canadians will walk right up on you. They will be like standing. I was sitting down yesterday at like at a park bench, like a bus one, and there was like space on either side of me, and a guy sat down right next to me, like I'm like Americans would never do that.
I would leave.
Yeah, I did. I got up. I'm like, I'm not standing.
Yeah.
No, you don't sit next to me. You go.
No way.
You go one over. Everyone knows that you go one over.
It's like the rule in the men's bathroom. You never take the stall next to a dude. You always take the 1-2 over.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, that doesn't. No such rule exists up here. But in general, so I was doing that. I was moving up here, and it just it was something where it took me a long time to realize I've got these books written. I might as well put them out and let someone, maybe someone will want to buy them. Maybe not, but they're doing me no good just sitting here as drafts. And the other thing is that I kind of come and go on the essays nowadays. Like I used to write one like almost every other week. And now sometimes I'll have a burst and write 3 or 4 in like a month, and then I won't have any for like 6, 7, 8 months. That has happened. So the past year, actually, all my work has been going into fiction. A friend of mine and I were co-writing a book. We're probably going to get back to that fairly soon, but it's one of those things where it's something like we put out 500,000 words.
Wow!
So it needs to be shaped, and there's stuff has to happen. Do
you have a tentative title or due date or anything we should be apprised of?
When I have something to share, I absolutely will share it. But right now, no.
And from what I've gathered, at least over the last couple of days, it sounds like you're really in the thick of a writing frenzy right now.
Well,
is that right?
Not a frenzy, but I decided I didn't actually. I've never
8,000 words. I don't know.
That's not that big a deal. But anyway,
you're talking to a guy who barely knows how to write his name. Come on.
Keep in mind that like on a every like once a day or so, I have to write at least 2,000 words. So,
wow.
But to get back to it for a sec, I mean the thing about the thing that you just asked about is that I've never done NaNoWriMo as an actual thing. Like I'm not part of the competition. I'm not going down the website and checking off any day or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I am using it as an excuse to like tell myself you absolutely have to write something on this thing every single day. You can't stop.
But isn't that the kind of discipline that you need as a writer, though, in order to finish? I mean, they say that no work is ever complete, but you need some sort of a due date to force you to do it or some kind of timeline, right?
Well, for me, it's always been more along the lines of just trying, like I said, because of the depression, there are times I can barely force myself to do anything. Like one of the things that was actually good about my day job was that it doesn't care if I don't want to get, I don't feel like getting up today. The post about gnomes that I have due does not care. And the website is a voracious demander of content. It doesn't care if I'm depressed. It doesn't care if I'm, however bad I am. It doesn't care. And that's.
And how do you and this was one of the things I'm very curious about is you are, in my estimation, quite prolific when it comes to the amount of content that you in particular put out for Blizzard Watch to get to them. How do you get yourself to that point where you're constantly able to put out new articles and new thoughts? Is just the way that you're built as a writer, or is there something that you do?
In terms of like how I do it, I mean, like you talked to like Ann or Alex or anybody who writes a lot for the site. It just comes down to part of it is just simply making yourself do it. It's just making yourself do it. And they're not all gems. I've written things that I look back on and go, ugh, that wasn't great. I've pushed out Know Your Lores and then thought later I could have done that so much better. But the thing about it is at least I did it at all, and sometimes that is the thing. I mean, to a degree, writing is just all about it is about the act. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, you can't be a swimmer if you don't swim. You can't be a runner if you don't run. You can't be a writer
Right.
if you don't write. I mean, to a degree, if you wrote something great once, that's good enough. I could probably, you could probably say, okay, well, I put out that one book, I'm a writer. But you don't want to stop. You're a
Right.
writer, you don't want to stop. So that's part of it, is just commit yourself to it, and make yourself do it. And
Does
you can go back and later on and go, oh God, what did I do? This is what editing is
well,
for.
and speaking of that, does Blizzard Watch give you an opportunity to maybe revise some of the things that you did on the site that shall not be named?
No and yes. I mean, we can't go back there.
Right.
AOL owns everything. And I could sit back. I could take up and write a KOL right now. That was one of the things I wrote about then. But for that matter, when I was there, I often went back to the same subjects because you totally could. There was never really a mandate telling you not to. In terms of like, I'm writing the same stuff for Blizzard Watch, but it's just I don't have to worry as much. Like I know who my bosses are, and I can talk to them, and if they're they have an objection, they will just address it with me, and it's much less like corporate BS-y, which I appreciate. It's nice.
Well, now, and it's good that you say that, because in I guess maybe this is just my opinion. I have a feeling you might share this, but you do have somewhat of the reputation, maybe even self-admittedly, that you are, I guess, the resident curmudgeon in a way. And it's something that I've always appreciated, is that you are honest without really, it seems like, regard to any other opinion. You have a belief, you stick to it, and you speak your piece, and intelligently so, I believe. Has that ever been a real problem with you with the writing jobs that you've had, particularly at Blizzard Watch, or did they
No.
just kind of let you go and
Well,
say, you know what, this is the man, he knows what he's doing?
well, I mean, Adam and I used to get into like straight up. He would post something, and I would be like, no, that's crap, and I would post something saying no, or the other way around. But
Right.
I wouldn't say that I do so without regard for what other people think, because you never want to not regard what other people think. And that's one of the things that I had to learn over years, is that, in fact, it's never a weakness to take other people's opinions into account, even if you find them repulsive. And there are opinions I find straight up repulsive.
Especially on the internet.
On the internet, absolutely. But there are things that I find that are just, monstrous, that I can't stomach. But you need to look at them. You need to every so often stop and look at other people's opinions. And there are times I've been wrong. Like, I believe in the past 10 years, I've become more liberal than I was by a lot. And the reason I have, maybe Winston Churchill was right. Don't never trust anyone anyone who under 30 who votes liberal is, votes conservative, has no heart, and anyone over 30 who votes liberal has no brain.
Right. I think I hear that at Thanksgiving every year.
Maybe he had a point, but at the same time, if you're not always trying to understand other people, if nothing else, you'll never be able to replicate them. And that's something you want to do as a writer, is you want to be able to put characters in your books who aren't you. And that's one of the things that I've always wanted to be able to do, is look at other people's opinions, and at least, if I don't share them, at least feel like I get them, that I understand where they're coming from. And people in general, people don't make decisions most of the time, unless somebody is truly warped or disturbed. They're not making decisions actively wanting to hurt other people. And that's something that's very hard to learn, because you see people make decisions that look hurtful, because they are hurtful. They hurt people. And you say, why? Why, what, are they monsters? No, they're not monsters. They have different beliefs and different opinions, and they see things differently than you. And if you can't agree with them or come to common cause with them, you still have to make the effort to understand them, because it broadens. And goes for huge, massive things, and it goes for people who play paladins. I mean,
they can't be forgiven. I'm sorry.
As much as I hate playing a paladin. I hate it. I have tried, and I have tried, and I have tried. And people have come up to me and go, "Why do you keep doing it if you hate it so much?" But the thing is I keep doing it because I want to understand. I want to, and I want to give it a chance. I mean, I've been playing this game for 11 years. I want to give every aspect of it a chance. I've tried mages. I've tried paladins. I've tried hunters and monks and everything but rogues. I played a rogue once, and I've never tried it again. That was how bad my experience on rogues was. But
Yeah, I think I made it to Westfall once as a rogue, and I threw in the
I
towel.
didn't even get out of wherever the night elves start off, where there's spiders. That was it. I was like, nope, this guy's done.
That's brutal.
But that's like when you stop looking at what other people are thinking or feeling. That's when you stop moving, and that's like, however old you are, if you're not dead yet, then you're not done yet, and it goes for like thoughts and ideas. As far as Blizzard Watch is concerned, there's been times like, when I've been like, told, dude, really, you can't, that's crazy, but not very often, and usually not in a way that made me like want to keep fighting about it. Like, it's a very reasonable editorial staff. Everybody there is reasonable. I've never had a problem. A lot of times, I will actually go and write a post that isn't necessarily what I think, but it's what I believe can be argued.
Mm-hmm.
Just because if someone else wrote it, they'd get attacked more than I do. I don't know what it is. And there are people who straight up will attack a post just because I wrote it and will straight up say that I'm the worst thing imaginable.
I've seen a few forum posts out there on other sites that shall not be named.
I've been, so there's people out there who hate something just because I said it and don't even care what it is. But at the same time, I do get it less than other people, and that's, I don't get why it is. I tend to stir up people's opinions, but at the same time, they're easily ignored. Like the people that don't like me are not of tremendous consequence to my life. I don't know why that is exactly. It's not like I like people telling me I'm garbage or anything, and I have gotten a few death threats, and I don't like those. But in general,
over what?
Oh, dude, I wrote a joke post once saying that Orgrimmar should be destroyed, and wow.
Well, didn't we do that?
It's like, well, no, because that was the point. We didn't destroy it. I was like, no, we should raise it to the ground. But I was kidding. I thought this was a self-apparently funny thing, and no.
Oh no, I support you. We totally should.
No, it was not.
Fuck that place.
People did not like that one at all. I was like, wow, okay, lesson learned. Fake orc towns not good to threaten. But,
yeah, I don't think I would have tolerated that very well, because that was part of the complaint I had about that entire raid tier was I wanted to burn that place to the ground. I just wanted to see smoking rubble, and instead it was, well, let's go underground to a place we never knew, and we'll dirty it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not one way or the other on that one. If you're a long-term Horde player, cool, whatever. I played Horde for a long time, but it's just. I get away with things, I think, because people, to a degree, it works for me, but at the same time, it also means people don't always take what I'm saying seriously. Like, they think, oh, he's just being a contrarian. Like, no, I seriously don't think Wrath of the Lich King is as good as everybody thinks it is. Because everybody thinks it's that good. And the second everybody has an opinion, or even, like, once there's a majority opinion, I immediately look at it and think, okay, this needs to be examined, it needs to be analyzed, it needs to be thought about. Because we can't all just accept this. Once we just all accept something, something's wrong.
This sounds exactly how I talk about network TV.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things where I'm like, oh, why is this show so popular? I don't know. Maybe I'm more of a contrarian because I automatically hate it. I don't give it as much intellectual curiosity as I guess you do.
I'm older. When I was younger, I was much more of a just knee-jerk reactor. But as I get older, I mean, one of the things is I hate hurting people. I mean, I do. And it's funny because I didn't hate it when I was younger. I think that's one of the things that just your life moves at certain speeds, and everyone comes to the realization at their own speed. But at the age I am right now, with the life experience I've had now, is I honestly hate hurting people. I hate making people feel bad. And that includes,
it's part of the experience.
Yeah, but that includes, like, something as simple as saying, Jesus, rogues are just terrible. They're just terrible. And they are. I mean, but that doesn't mean rogue players are terrible. We love them dearly. Class is what drives me nuts. Playing the class is just awful to me. I cannot. I've played monks and liked it comparatively because, and let's just say this: monk leveling is just throwing a keg at things and they all die in a big circle. I don't even know where we were. I think we were in the Plague Lands, and like Alex brought like 300 bats, and I threw one keg and everything just died. Ooh. He's like, I didn't even have time to dot anything. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Keg just destroys everything, man.
What's the ABV on something like that? Like 15?
All I know about
keg brutal.
Keg smash is just destroys everything in sight.
Well, since we're already there, let's go ahead and start talking about what we're looking forward to here. This now, for the full sake of disclosure and behind the scenes witchcraft, this is going to air after BlizzCon, but we can't not talk about BlizzCon, where we've been, where we're going, and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, the devs have said at one point that going forward into Legion, that either this is part of a continuation of a story, that this is not necessarily a gigantic expansion, that this is not to be some sort of a standalone, that this is, I guess, the second part of a trilogy, or maybe the third, of something a little bit more extended. Coming out of Warlords, just getting to that first, are you satisfied with how the story and the lore has been progressing through, let's say, Pandaria, through Warlords, and up to where we're going, or where it looks like we're going?
Pandaria was a really good expansion.
Agreed.
I've actually said at times that I think it actually surpasses Wrath. That depends on the day. Like today I said that, and I'm already starting to feel like I don't necessarily agree with it. But it was a very good expansion. And
well, that content patch where we had, what was it, the storyline with Varian and Anduin, and that whole arc.
Yeah.
I wish they could do that every patch.
The fact that they had, if you look at the way Miss worked, and I don't want to dwell on this, but Miss had it had patch 5.0 where the original story was set up. Then in 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, every single major patch had something content related. It had, even if it was a PvP oriented patch, it had a little bit of story content. Every single patch. And that, my friends, is how it is done.
Oh, you hope
it
so?
Has not. No, I mean literally. If you want to look at the perfect deployment of lore in an experience, there it is. Miss of Pandaria. Boom, 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 boom. And the problem I actually have, and I've said this 100 times, is that they put them out too quickly. They put out major content patches like every few months.
And this is in Pandaria, you mean?
Yeah, in Pandaria. In Pandaria. Yeah. We're talking about Pandaria. We get to patch 5.4 in the rollout of Siege of Orgrimmar. And then we have, I think, close to 16 months of nothing.
That sounds about right.
And that was a huge. We are still reeling from that. That huge content drought was a huge, huge problem, and it was exacerbated by the fact that when Warlords came out, Warlords looked like it was going to be even better.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
Not only was it gorgeous, not only was it good to look at, but leveling was just unreal.
Oh. For sure.
The garrison felt like it was this great idea. Like, oh yeah, we have a central location that we range out from.
It felt very organic.
Yeah, we go, we start with the suicide mission, we establish the garrison, now we have the garrison, and if you're Horror Alliance, it doesn't matter, your garrison's in, either way. That is your home base, and you go out, and each zone of the expansion feels like you on another leg of the mission. And it works really great. And then you get to level 100, and the story, it hits like a drag chute. And it's not that the story is bad. I will actually I'm going to do something I haven't done when I've talked about this. The Garrison campaign is actually good. It's a good story.
And you're talking about the one where it's sort of oddly gated, where you're doing different stories.
Yeah, one a week thing. One of the things that's interesting about it is it doesn't even play for the same for two different people. I don't know if you know that, because I only noticed it because my wife and I were doing it, and hers was at a different time than mine. You aren't getting the same quest that another guy in another garrison gets. It's not exactly the same.
Why do you think they did it that way?
Just to keep it, unpredictable. And it works in a lot of ways. But the problem is because it's gated the way it is, because the most you're going to see of it is one chunk of story a week. Whereas if you look back to 5.1 and the Operation Shield Wall / Dominance Offensive stuff, however fast your reputation went up, that was you unlocked things and you unlocked the quests, and you could go through the whole thing in a week or two, or you could take longer. Right. And I know that they were worried people would burn through it too fast, but what ended up happening was people lost interest. The story itself, though, is actually really good.
Oh, it's very good. I loved
it. Especially stuff you go out and help Yrel, or you go up to the Sargerai place and you find out what's going on with those guys. It helps you explore the world. It gives you reasons to go places. But the problem is there wasn't enough of it, and it was gated the way it was, so you felt like, okay, well, I'll see the rest of this next week. Now all I get to do is go to parts of the world and just grind up on a Pexis bar. Yay. And that lasted...
That's very engaging.
Yeah, and the other problem with that was that 6.1 comes along, and it has nothing.
Oh, no, it had something.
No, it had nothing in terms of story. And that's like, we talk about this a lot. It's one of the weird balancing acts of MMOs is that players will skip quest text. They don't necessarily pay attention to the story. And anybody who said, I don't know why I'm here on Draenor, either wasn't paying attention to the story or was making a point about how it was told. Because it was actually pretty obvious why we were there on Draenor the whole time.
Yeah, we had huge cutscenes and everything.
But they're not. When you start doing the raids and you start doing stuff, for me, the biggest problem of Warlords of Draenor, which, again, in terms of the story is actually pretty good. But the biggest problems are, A, there's a shift. I used to call it the third issue shift because it reminds me of something that happens in comic books a lot. When, like, the first couple issues of the comic come out and the creators realize, oh, God, no one's reading this. Quickly, so now he's got superpowers and he doesn't use guns anymore and he fights witches instead of criminals. And you're like, what happened? Like, this is completely different. The Burning Legion stuff kind of just comes out of nowhere. I mean, you're never given any reason to think Gul'dan's going to pull that one off, and then suddenly, boom, there they are, Burning Legion everywhere.
When I've heard this complaint about Hellfire Citadel itself, and it seems to be supported by some of the things that Blizzard employees have said, or at least some of the devs have said, where they were going in one direction, and then it is an obvious shift.
Yeah.
To another direction. I mean, we have the main bad guy, or at least the way it started out, and now we're saving him, and he's like corpse fucking one of the bosses that we kill later on. It's very weird.
Yeah, and part of the problem too is this: when you get to you're doing the various things. When you're leveling up, the first problem is that Nirzul is a boss in a dungeon. So,
which I hated.
Nirzul, who's one of the titular warlords of Draenor, is a boss in a dungeon. And then you're like, okay. And I don't want to miss the point, quite frankly. There is a point people often miss, is the actual warlord of this expansion is you. We are the warlords of Draenor. Because we rise to power. We conquer all our enemies. I get that. If anyone in Blizzard ever ends up listening to this, I get where you were going with that. I'm not ignorant of that point. My point is that you did not tell it very well. It's like it's like when you tell a joke and the punchline is, I got the punchline, but it wasn't funny. That's like, I get your epic sweeping moment, but you don't actually make me feel like the warlord. You just make me feel like I ran through some innocent, so easily pushed over mooks, because Nirzul goes down in a dungeon. Blackhand and Kargath go down in the first raid tier.
Well, now that one in particular, and I have to believe you agree with me on this one. Having Kargath as the opening boss of the first raid was just so deflating. I mean, that guy had an amazing story. They did that Lord of War series, and his was just, it was awesome. It was riveting. I think people really got into that.
Who would believe that he would then be willingly the opening boss at Highmaul?
It was awful.
It made no sense. It didn't even fit what they'd already said. Yeah, that's always bothered me, because if he were the end boss of Highmaul, like if the Iron Horde had sent him to clean up, like he's like, well, obviously you ogres have failed, so now the Iron Horde will show you what's what. At least you would have felt like, okay, that's fitting of the stature we're supposed to give this guy.
And I've heard you talk about this specific one before, I think somewhere else. And one of the questions that I did want to ask you is, do you think that Blizzard doesn't allow enough room for actual, real, felt consequences as we go through these raids? Or are they just committed so heavily to every time we're the victor, we're the champion, whatever it is? Like, do you think that they can ever let that go and let some real bad shit happen and stay permanent because of something that happens in a raid?
I don't know if it's that they I think it's just that they haven't come up with a story yet where that's what they want to do. And see, that's the thing is I got to say this. I'll give Blizzard full credit on this one, is they come up with the story they want to do, and they commit to it, and they do it. This isn't like a coincidence. They're not like, the one that really comes to mind is, and going back to Wrath of the Lich King again, there is a moment in Wrath of the Lich King that I think is absolutely sublime in terms of dungeon moments. And it's a good way to use a character. Like, I honestly think they should have done something like this with Nirzul, where when we fight him in the dungeon, he kicks our ass.
Right.
Because when you fight the Lich King in Halls of Reflection, you spend the entire encounter running away from him. You don't fight him, because if you try, he will kill you.
He just keeps blocking you off and throwing ads, and you're just... I remember running those with pugs, and I just drop into a flop sweat and go nuts.
Yeah, tanking him was a nightmare. Tanking this because of the spawning of the ads and everybody running around like chickens with their heads cut off. But again, for all that, we're cynical as players, but that was still, as a dungeon, that fight set up the Lich King beautifully. Because, we're gonna need a bigger boat because we have the biggest boat we had right there, and all it could do was slow him down. Like, it gives you a sense of real, actual threat to this guy. And it lets you encounter him and experience him without just, pushing him over. Having Ner'zhul, basically, the fight itself is extremely well designed. This is the worst part. It's like, a lot of this stuff is really well designed, but it's like, it's a well-designed fart joke. Like, I don't care how...
You can never underestimate the value of a good fart joke,
yeah, but how, to a certain degree, no matter how hard you work on the fart joke, it ultimately ends with a sound.
That's the best part.
Yeah, but how much time do you want to spend on that?
Very true.
And it's just one of the things that really bugged me about Ner'zhul. But then the worst part is the Garrison campaign takes out the only female warlord. You don't even get to see her anywhere else, and she's not.
And she was a surprise.
Yeah, she's not even on the packaging. But you don't even.
No.
So she doesn't even get to be in a raid. You take her out in the Garrison campaign. So by the time you have gotten through the Garrison campaign, if you've raided at all, even LFR, this is the tally of warlords: Ner'zhul dead, Kargath dead, Blackhand dead, Grommash ran away. You know what I'm saying here? Like, and when Grommash just turns and runs, I'm sorry, at the end of the Garrison campaign, he should have fought and beaten you. He should have stomped you into the ground and you got rescued at the last minute by somebody. Like, Khadgar could teleport you out. And like, the whole thing should have been you holding him there long enough for the Alliance army to line up, and he just beats the heck out of you and you nearly die. Medivh pulls you out. Not Medivh, sorry, Khadgar. Khadgar, finger quotes. Pulls you out, and then you're like, the Alliance army's there, and so Grommash leaves rather than try and fight the entire Alliance military. That makes sense, but he doesn't do that. Mm-hmm. You beat his forces, and he just goes, well, we'll get you next time, Gadget. Turns and goes through the wall, and then gets beaten by Gul'dan in a cutscene. It's a beautiful cutscene. No, hats off to Taron Gregory. That dude in his department do amazing work. But it still has nothing to do with my character. Like, at least the other stuff, like, when you see the Dark Portal get destroyed, you blew it up. That was you. Yeah. You did that. When you see, like, the big Velen cinematic, and Velen goes in and gets himself killed, you got him there.
Yeah.
You took action. Or the Frostfire Ridge one where Thrall's uncle dies. I mean, granted, I don't care, but that guy, you at least got him to that point, But the Grommash cinematic had nothing to do with you. And it's funny because we talk about maybe the focus too much on you being victorious, but the focus doesn't necessarily have to be on you victorious. It just has to be on your actions. And that's the thing. We talk about actions having consequences. In a sort of way, like, our actions have had some huge consequences. Like, we defeated Kil'jaeden and reignited the Sunwell. Mm-hmm. That was us. We did that. We defeated the Lich King. Again, that was us. We did that. I know that, the statues are all of, Tyrion, because that guy loves statues. But,
he won't be around much longer anyway.
Ones who did it. And it's just, it feels like having a moment where, I don't know, maybe it's this, we don't have enough aftermaths. We don't have enough follow-up. We blow up the Veil, destroy everything. Well, we don't. Garrosh did, but it was still our fault.
Right.
And at the end, it's like, well, a tree is growing. I guess we can leave because there's a tree growing? It's like, dude, there should be an entire patch just about us fixing this. Like, there should have been a dungeon or a scenario where you had to go back in and make sure that the Titan stuff was working properly so that Pandora wouldn't starve. That could have easily been done.
Do you think that that's their attempt, though, to make it feel like these things have consequences, that, like, what we're doing, it didn't work out, or we can't save this thing, or there are going to be lasting effects
if you're going to have the lasting effects bit, you need more than just a little cutscene where a tree grows again. You need to, like, actually see it.
Well, we have to have some place to watch that cinematic later on, right?
Yeah, but this is just one of the things that really... I honestly feel like one of the problems we've had last couple of expansions, so we talked about Myst for a while. We talked how they did it well. Then we talked about what Warlords didn't do right. What Warlords did do right, and which really has to be said, is they delivered a really great content patch in 6.2, where it's got story and it's got exploration stuff, and it's got a zone where you can do like both. You can do a campaign type thing. You can just go out and explore and kill rares. It's got a good raid. It's a good raid. Whatever you want to say.
You're talking about Tanan?
Yeah. Tanan?
It seems like it feels rather purposeless, though, and I know that's the one complaint that I've had is it's like, okay, I'm doing all of these, rare kills and doing these things, but it doesn't really feel like I'm doing and granted, the followers and the army building kind of got a little wonky with you could only have like 25 at a time, even though I've really collected 50, and that was sort of weird, but it felt like it just was just thrown at us as, here's the content, oh, and here's flying too. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even get flying till much later because I just didn't care that much. But, I mean, I'm not saying there's not good content in there. I'm just saying that one of the problems with the tonal shift of going from patch, for the launch patch to what we have now in 6.2 is that the tonal shift causes dissonance. Like you don't know why, or suddenly why is this guy in charge? They did it.
Exactly.
They did a good garrison campaign with it. Like Yrel gives you actual story quests that open it up and broaden it out more. But I honestly feel like there should have been a 6.1 with story, and there should be a 6.3, and I don't think there will be. I don't think. Well, there might be a 6.3. There might be a 6.3 that's literally here's the world event for the next expansion. I don't know, but I feel like there should have been a patch where maybe we get the trial of Grommash Hellscream where he gets to like say, "Oops, my bad. I guess I should have listened to that guy who was my son that I didn't know was my son. Oops, sorry.
We'll just pretend.
I'm real sorry about the whole 5 years of iron hoarding. Hope I didn't kill you too much."
So looking forward to Legion, since we are talking about storing and carrying that forward, I know one of the concerns that I've heard from other people is that with Legion, it looks like they're really doing this sort of kitchen sink approach in that we're getting the Legion, we're getting Emerald Dream, we're getting Ajara, we're getting the return of Valeria and Terralion, we're getting all of these various things.
Honestly, I'll tell you right now, I don't actually see the problem here, and here's why. All of those things tie together. Like, if you're doing a Burning Legion expansion, this is the quote-unquote biggest demonic invasion since the original invasion during the War of the Ancients.
That's what they've said.
Everything you just mentioned is tied to the War of the Ancients. The Emerald Nightmare is tied in through Xavius, who was there during the original Burning Legion invasion, and who Sargeras turned into the first of the Satyrs. Ashara, original Burning Legion invasion, she's the one that basically told them, yeah, this is a great idea. Open the portal wider and let Sargeras come through so I can finally have a boyfriend worthy of me.
Let's jump in the hot tub.
So I don't think, and Alarian Terralion, literally the end of Warcraft 2 is them going through the Dark Portal to fight the Horde because the Horde had just been sent to Azeroth by the Burning Legion, by Gul'dan, who was, working hand in hand with Sargeras. It ties in. All this stuff ties in. So I don't think it is a kitchen sink, everything in the kitchen sink thing. It just looks that way to people because, well, for one thing, we're very cynical after Warlords. Let's just be honest. We are looking at this jaundicely because we've been burned.
I think that's been going on to your point from earlier, the siege burnout.
Yeah.
It seemed like it really picked up after
siege,
that.
The year plus in Siege really created something that is still there. I think that the flying debacle did not help.
No.
People thought that Blizzard was bait and switching them or BSing them.
It sounded very insincere.
Yeah, I try really hard not to aspire negative motivation to these people because they don't. People that work at Blizzard are not trying to lie to you because they don't, to screw you. They want you to keep playing the game. That's how they get their paycheck and stuff. That being said, all sorts of stuff can happen in development and you have no idea, and stuff changes. You know what I mean?
Well, do you think that there's, and I know exactly what you mean, and I think that that's something that Blizzard has a bit of a problem in my own estimation with, in that there's a difference between having actual legitimate PR department to issues, approved statements, and the like, and then you have developers and others who are trying to do the community a service by, not going through those channels and just saying, hey, here's a thought, or here's something that's going on, or trying to be more casual about it. And they just get fucking hammered every time something happens or doesn't happen.
Let's be honest, too. One of the biggest problems of this expansion has been lack of a coherent response that isn't PR.
On a lot of things.
Yeah, and love him or hate him, Greg Street, Ghostcrawler, when he left, one of the things he took with him was he was a lightning rod. Every good and every bad thing people thought about the game was often aspired to him. And he himself would say, no, man, this is a team. It isn't just Ghostcrawler and his amazing friends. But people, people blamed him for mage stuff for years when he didn't have anything to do with that class design. Nothing.
Absolutely. Well, it's our tendency, I think, is, I don't know, maybe it's a species thing.
They look for a face.
That's right.
And without him, they tried to build up for a while the Warcraft Devs channel and tried to have like an official place to go. But the thing is, there's no engagement there. People don't see it as personal, so they don't view it as important. I don't know how.
Yeah, there's no face.
Yeah, and they just need something to identify with. Honestly, I hope that with Legion, we've grown as a community to the point where we don't really feel that need as strongly, but we'll see what happens. I do think that in terms of the everything in the kitchen sink accusation, I think it's just kind of, I straight up find that to be inaccurate. I think everything that we see can be explained as part of the Legion's invasion. It's all, my concern is more along the lines of this. What happens after this?
And what do you think happens after this? Because that's something that I wanted to make sure I got your thoughts on. Given the trail that we have, what do you think?
Man, I don't even know. In terms of the actual story of Legion, obviously I don't know. I mean, there will be stuff. We know that Gul'dan's going to be back. We know there's going to be this new elf race, the Nightborn, who are like pre-Sundering Night Elves that were left stewing in their evil for 10,000 years. So that's going to be fun. We know there's going to be an army of demons coming through the Temple of Sargeras. We know there's going to be massive upheaval. Some folks are going to die.
And I have.
Everyone has their own theories,
about
but I'm telling you right now, Thrall ain't going to be one of them.
That would, I don't think that would surprise anybody.
I think he should, and not because I hate him either. I just think it'd be like a huge deal for the game if he did.
Well, but, and to something that I've said with other people is that I feel like, and this is my own opinion, and it gets blasted enough, is that I think the Alliance side gets shafted when it comes to things like this. We saw, for instance, Murad getting killed, which I thought was just not equitable on the other side of the fence, whereas it seems like what's coming is the Alliance is about to lose, maybe not guys that come in and are visible every day, but important figures in lore or in the story, whereas Green Jesus is untouchable.
Here's the thing. I don't think for a second that they're not going to kill Thrall because of the Green Jesus thing. Here's what I think they're not going to kill him for. They're not going to kill Thrall because they love him. And I don't mean that in a negative way. We used to all love him, even as Alliance players. Back in the day, after you played Warcraft 3, Thrall had an incredible popularity. And he is an actual cool character. The problem is that he's been used poorly in the past few years.
And too much.
Honestly, it's not even that he was used too much. I hear people say that, and I get why, but for me, it's not even so much that he was used too much as that he completely dominated Siege of Orgrimmar. Not Siege of Orgrimmar.
There you go.
He did dominate that to a degree, but that's not the point. He completely dominated Dragon Soul to the point where I felt like I was his spear carrier.
Yes.
That I didn't like. His appearance in Siege of Orgrimmar, on the other hand, is he shows up at the end, does something dumb, gets smacked around, and then I get to beat up the bad guy. I'm okay with that. Like, you can use Thrall like that all you want. But here's why I think he should die, ultimately. Because as long as he's alive, the other characters never get to step forward. You don't get to see what Vol'jin's going to do as War Chief. You don't get to see how Bane is as Chief of the Tauren. Thrall, honestly, if he doesn't die, he should literally retire. As in, finally just go, take his wife, take his kid, or for that matter, just take the kid. The wife can actually stick around and get to do some things. But just get out for a while. And don't overshadow these characters anymore. Because it's not just bad enough you're overshadowing us. You're overshadowing the characters that are your replacements. Vol'jin is your replacement. He has replaced you.
And we don't really know much about him or why.
He's been around for like 15 years, man.
Yeah.
He's a Warcraft 3 character. let him be the war chief if you're going to make him the war chief. And I think that was a great move on Blizzard's part. I honestly do. I dig that they made Vol'jin war chief. And I know it's kind of weird I'm an Alliance player, and I know the Horde's gotten tons of story time, guys. I do. If you're an Alliance player, I go, he's going to say give them more story. And I am. I'm actually going to say we need more Horde story. But I'm not saying we need more Horde story at the expense of Alliance story.
And that's the thing, is there's a difference between intelligent storytelling, which is targeted and purposeful, as opposed to let's just throw out all of these blanket stories and just see what sticks.
See, I honestly don't think we're getting a lot of blanket stories for Legion. I honestly think we're getting here's what we're going to see in Legion. We're going to see the invasion, and it's going to be bad up front. We're going to get stomped. So
we have been told it'll be shocking.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm hopeful that we get beat up. But then we're going to see the rebuilding process, and whilst going through the various zones, because this is something they've developed, they did it in Mists, and they did it in Warlords, and it worked both times. Going from zone to zone, each zone has a sub-story, or two sub-stories, that are unique to the zone. And we really got that in Warlords, like when you went to Gorgrond, and there were the competing tracks even, like you could choose which one you wanted to do, and whichever one you didn't do as quests, you could go do as events.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. I honestly think we're gonna get to see, like, we know the Emerald Nightmare stuff that's going to happen. That's going to be part of the story of one zone. We're going to see like what the High Mountain Tauren deal is going on with those guys. We're going to see what Sylvanas and Ganniva are up to, and I get the sense that they're going to be continuing from their feud in Cataclysm.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all like chapters or episodes, for lack of a better word. We'll use like a British TV show as an example. You know how they have a series? And
I know how I get 4 episodes of Sherlock every 9 years.
Yeah, like that. Where you have 4 episodes of Sherlock, and the episodes are like, one of the episodes is John is getting married, and there's the episode itself has the marriage plot, really serves as the, like, I've only seen this episode, so it's the only one I can tell you. But the one where like the guy gets...
You should watch the rest.
Yeah, I don't like the actors that much. But you know the guy that gets stabbed with the pin and then he gets pulled out, but his belt holds him together?
Yes.
And that's like the B plot of the episode, the A plot.
Yes.
But it runs through the whole episode. But that, in of itself, that episode's real purpose is just that John gets married so that later he can be blackmailed.
Mm-hmm.
And the end villain of the series, that ties in. That's what we're going to see. Or to use like Doctor Who as an example, where you have like episodes where it doesn't seem like it has anything to do with the overarching plot, but at the end it does and comes back. That's kind of what they tried to do in Warlords, and I'm positive they're going to try it again in Legion. And that's what they do with the zones. Like, to use Spires of Iraq as an example, if you went through all the Spires of Iraq, you got to see the resistance Arakoa, the ones that have been cursed, and the ones that are like fighting against their queen up in Skyreach. Mm-hmm. And that guy comes back in the last raid, and you see like he gets cured of his affliction and turns back, through Gul'dan being evil, of course, because Gul'dan. That kind of stuff, like Legion, I think is really going to be heavy on the episodic zone storytelling, because you're going to have the class hall and you're going to have the artifact to level up. Also, I'm hoping, and I'm not. This is a hard prediction to make, but I'm hoping we're not going to see anything easy in terms of what we do. Like when we get to level 110, what happens next? What do we do at 110? Because we've got this Burning Legion armament coming through. Like, the first raid is apparently going to be Emerald Nightmare, which is, as far as I can tell, a fairly old god-heavy experience.
Yes.
So, what's the deal there? Are the old gods taking advantage of the Burning Legion coming through again, like they did the last time?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to be trying to stop them? This is the thing where there's so much room to go with, and I don't... It's impossible to predict. Like, why is Sylvanas doing anything? Like, what does that have to do with the Vrykul? As Anne pointed out when we were talking about it, Sylvanas has got those, like, Valkyr ladies that keep alive.
A few of them, anyway.
And that's, like, maybe she's going to get more?
Yeah.
Or trying to find out, like, where her soul ended up when the Valkyr, like, there's a ton of stuff to deal with.
And that short story, by the way, that's related to that Dave Cossack wrote is amazing.
It's a very good story.
Very good. So if anybody listening to this, if you have not read that, go to the website for Warcraft, look it up under the media material they have. It is phenomenal, and it explains a lot about the state of Sylvanas now, what happens to her right after the events of ICC. It's very compelling stuff, and I do recommend it. You touched on something that I, as a warrior, as somebody who has actively campaigned for this very specific thing on every outlet that I have, I need to ask you this question. What should you and I do first if there is no Titan's Grip artifact? What should we destroy first?
I'm going to be finding a new class. No, I'm not kidding. I will not play. I will not play a warrior in Legion if they take Titan's Grip out.
I will probably quit. I'll just lay that out. You'll never see me again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to see single-minded Fury warriors that like single-minded Fury. I don't want to see you guys dissatisfied. But if somebody has to be, better you than me, man.
It's a great Rorschach test I've found. Is if you ask a warrior which one they prefer, you know which answer they should give. So if you tell me single-minded Fury, yeah, you're out.
It's just. I mean, I get why people like it. I remember people playing the SMF style back before Titan's Grip existed, Burning Crusade. I mean, I leveled it. I played in both Vanilla and BC. I was actually a rare two-handed slam Fury warrior back in Vanilla. That was what I did. I tanked with that build. I didn't have a single point in prot, and I tanked because every warrior had to tank in some fights. That's just the way it was. There were fights where you needed 8 tanks, and then there were fights where you needed 1 tank. And so the rest of the warriors would be like, okay, pull on that DPS gear that you kept around. That's like, I mean, I'm going to digress here a little bit, but this will go to what I'm saying. Back in the day, when we were like I said, I was tanking, and I would DPS when we didn't need so many tanks. And one of the things that happened was we were running Molten Core, and the Eye of Sulphurus dropped, and the roll was down between myself and a Paladin healer, and the Paladin healer had more DKP than I did. So that looked to be the end of it until the main heal lead for the entire guild, who was a druid, said, "No, I'm bidding on it then." And they were like, "What?" And he goes, "No, she's a healer. She never DPSs.
Mm-hmm.
I see no reason she should get that over him. He would use it. She will never use it. It's just a toy. He will be using it tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to go into Blackwing Lair tomorrow, and he only tanks like 3 fights there because so most of the fights are single tank.
Mm-hmm.
I see no reason for this to happen. I have more DKP than anybody because when do I ever get to bid on anything?
Wow.
So straight up, he fought for me. He got me that weapon. He got me the eye. That night they made the weapon for me, and the next night he was right. I was using it, and so because of that, I switched to two-hand slam because. Mm-hmm. Before that, I was like every other Fury warrior in Vanilla. I used 2 one-handed weapons because that's what you did.
Oh, yes.
And but I switched to two-hand slam, and I actually pioneered two-hand slam on my server. I was like one of the few people who used it. And it was great. Two-hand slam was a revelation. I was like, oh my God, screw Moral Strike. This is so much fun. Because, first off, it was like the only warrior spec that had a cast bar on anything. Because what you would do with two-hand slam back then was you would just hit things until your rage bar was full, and then you would just hit slam over and over again until your rage bar was empty. Now, it sounds like an imbecile spec, because let's be honest, it kind of was. But it had this amazing, like, if you did it, like, right, if you got your rage up at the exact right time, and you slammed it away properly, things evaporated. Your DPS was crazy. And it was like the first time I realized, you can play this class different ways. You can.
Well, this is. I was going to say, this is way before we had anything resembling the resources we have now.
Exactly. There was no this was when Thoughtbot was big.
Yeah.
And I remember when Wowhead came out, and it was a game changer. But this was back when Thoughtbot was the big thing, and sometimes people still tried Alakazam. They would still try. No, Alakazam's good. Like, no, man, it isn't.
Thoughtbot was the way to go.
you can stop playing EverQuest anytime you want, but no, it's not working for us. But so when I got into Burning Crusade, and they made some changes. Tanking was real hard in Burning Crusade because warriors were behind. They'd made paladins and druids these awesome AoE tanks, and warriors were behind for a long time. They didn't really get us back up to par until like halfway through the expansion. But one of the things I discovered, because I switched over to full-time, like I was full-time tanking then, and so I didn't get to do a whole heck of a lot of DPSing. Then during the announcement period for Wrath of the Lich King, and as much as I've said before that other expansions were just as good and Wrath is overrated, I remember this exact moment. Mike Gray, who worked for the site that should not be named and still works for the new one, was at a panel at BlizzCon, and he just wrote it offhandedly in notes that he was sending back to the chat room. They just announced Titan's Grip. Warriors can dual wield two-handed weapons. Rossi will be happy. I put that in a post because it was true. I was like I made noises.
Oh, I was there with you.
And I remember going on the beta shortly thereafter and playing around with it and realizing it was so. Because here's the thing, and I've said this, I say a lot of things a lot. I'm very repetitive. I'm quite boring that way. But the thing about Titan's Grip is it is visually unique. It is more visually unique than anything else any other class has. Because in a world where other classes get to do crazy, awesome things that warriors don't get to do because we don't have mana or don't have a third role or what have you. Or aren't considered pures, we're we're kind of like us and Death Knights and priests and shamans all kind of have the same problem, and I guess Demon Hunters will too. But Demon Hunters and Death Knights are newer classes. They were designed around themes and so forth. The warriors were designed less focused.
Well, we have less razzle dazzle, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, but in a world where all that's true, only warriors can dual wield two-handed weapons. Period.
Which is the perfect class fantasy for us.
It is, and it's the thing that is always kind of I've always felt like Titan's Grip should have replaced using one-handed weapons for warriors. We should never have used them again. We should have.
I completely agree.
We should have gotten Titan's Grip for protection. And I've argued this. I argued this with both Celestalon and Ghostcrawler back when he was around. I never get anywhere. They never do it, but. Protection should literally be you with a spear and a shield, like a pole arm or some gigantic f-off axe.
This is sort of the Spartan-esque shield spear kind of thing.
It should be that should be protection, and arms use one big two-hander. Fury use two of them, and that should be it. And the reason that I believe that is because it is so visually distinctive.
Oh, absolutely.
The problem would be that it would basically leave arms as the only one that looks like any other class, because both paladins and druids also, would look paladins and druids. Paladins and death knights also use the two-hander the way the arms warrior does, but it would still leave both fury and protection as visually distinct. And fury right now, if you're a fury warrior using two one-handed weapons, there's nothing that distinguishes you from a death knight, and precious little that distinguishes you from a rogue or a shaman or soon demon hunters, or even monks. Heck, monks dual wield, and they look cooler than us when they do it because their one-handed weapons all cross on their backs.
And they also were modeled after, the likes of Chuck Norris and all of those other. I mean, they have their own special visual effects. But for the one last question I do have about artifacts, I know I've kept you quite a while here. What do you think the Titan's Grip artifact should be?
Well, what it should be? Oh man, I don't know. I still kind of.
What's your guess?
I don't have a guess. Seriously, I got no idea. They're gonna pull something out of somewhere, and I'll be like, oh my god, why didn't I guess that? I've wanted them to basically have it be like, when Sargeras went bad, he broke his two-handed sword.
Yes.
And pieces of it, like one of the pieces went to the Pantheon and wielded the Tesselash and Gorable. Tesselash is being wielded by one of the Pantheon, and Gorable is being wielded by one of the by Sargeras himself. And I've always thought they should be like some kind of when the Avatar came through, the Avatar of Sargeras, it should have been using like an Avatar of Gorable. And I think we should basically have a situation where warriors get the Avatar of Gorable, and if you're a Titan's Grip warrior, you basically would get that, and then you'd get an Avatar of Tesselash, so you don't go crazy evil using the Avatar of Gorable. You'd get like a good one and an evil one to keep you balanced. So you don't go nuts. But these two slivers, like pure Titan artifact level goodness, boom, there you go. There's your Titan's Grip weapon.
Well, and isn't that supposed to be? I believe in the expansion announcement, they even said that this was supposed to be the ultimate weapon for the ultimate evil and such and such.
Yeah, I don't know. They're probably not going to do with that one, but there's like other weapons throughout the game's history they could do, or they can just make new ones up. And I'm fine with them making new ones up. Like I would be totally okay if they come up with like say Moon Crusher, Hammer of the Mountain King.
Yeah.
It's like, some great dwarven thing. Like if this weapon literally looks like I have a dwarf on a stick, what the hell? Or like, this ancient Tauren like spear that's like got like it's got like 10. At the end of it's got 10 spear points. How am I even going to hit people with that? Well, I guess I'll just try. Because to me that's the thing. That ultimately that's the essence of the warrior class to me is we will literally try to hit you with anything. We don't.
Oh yes.
Hey, here's a staff that guy uses to cast holy light through, but I can hold it and hit you with it.
Here's a heavy shoe. I'm going to put my fist in it, and I'm just going to beat your face in.
Yeah, like
that's kind of what we do.
There's a joke, but it's actually like it's a lore joke in one of the things about dwarves. Not dwarves, about ogres. There's like ogre weapons tech. There was like at one time the oldest ogre like the ogre clan like is the I can't remember their bloody name, but it's something like the Boulder Fist or something. And then one day one of them discovered like how to put a stick and a rock together, and they became the Warmaul clan. And this was like this enormous weapons technology leap. And I'm like, that guy was a warrior. That guy was like, I like hitting things, but I want to hit things harder and from further away.
Oh yeah. Scavenging all over Draenor, you see some pretty homemade looking weapons.
I will tie this rock to a stick. Finally, at some point they thought of, what if I tie sharp things to a stick? The spear was born. What if I use a really sharp thing on both sides? The axe was born. What if I have a really long sharp thing? The sword is born. It's ultimately all about hitting people. That's the class. I like warriors because their fundamental core is so simple and direct. It is yelling at things and hitting them.
And getting hit.
Yeah, and getting hit in order to hit things harder and yell more about it. And
yeah.
And I think when I wrote the last column for the place that I don't work at anymore, I said something like the reason that warriors are unique is because we are the bullet that we shoot.
Yes.
Charge is all about literally, I'm going to put myself over there now. I want to be over there, but that's where all their spears and axes are. Yeah, but that's where they are. And if I want to hit them with my thing, I have to accept it's only fair I let them hit me with their thing.
That is truly the essence of being a warrior.
Yeah, it's just shooting yourself at those guys.
So where after I guess artifacts, where do we even go from there? How do they improve on a system like that? Do they just keep giving us artifact weapons now? Or
nope. And you know what? I actually love the idea of this. I love the fact that World of Warcraft is not afraid to abandon a system after you got to play with it for a while. And I think that is one of the things that other games would be afraid to do and would be stuck forever with artifacts. But no, they're going to just straight up, they'll be good till about level 115, and then you're going to have to switch to some blue you found somewhere.
So you think they'll go back to the older model?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Just like I don't think we're going to have garrisons next time around. I think followers and stuff is going to be, whatever system they put in Legion is going to be very different and probably less extensive. I think they've learned their lesson that garrisons were too complete. They were too all-encompassing, and they basically they watered down the game experience by giving you too much. So I don't think we're going to have follower missions like we do now. And I don't think that the follower missions we have now are going to be good anymore. Like, I don't think you're going to want to go back to your garrison and set up another gold run.
I don't know. It's been pretty lucrative for me, and I'm a lazy ass when it comes to these kinds of things.
I don't think you'll be able to, is another way to put it.
All right. Very
good.
I
don't think it's just going to happen.
I have kept you here for almost entirely too long, but if you'll permit me, I have one more question that I have to ask.
Sure, go
ahead. This is a question from a friend of mine who his name is Hannibal. He and I have been writing for a number of years together, and he once asked on a site that shall not be named this question. It was never answered, so I wanted to ask it to you now. At full strength, who would win in a duel to the death? Deathwing the Destroyer or your masterful, glorious beard?
Okay. One time I was walking home from a supermarket that was near the first place I moved when I moved up to Canada. I live in Edmonton. I don't know if you know that. This supermarket is still there. It's a Safeway. And it was right next to an older folks' home. and it had the dumpsters were like in a really weird place where it was like the dumpsters for the older folks assisted community was right next to the supermarket dumpster. Okay. And this dumpster was absolutely packed with wasps.
Oh.
I don't know if you know anything about a wasp.
Oh yes, we get them.
These were large wasps, like about 2.5 inches long.
Mm.
One day, it was a hot summer day, and I went down there and I bought some soda and I was walking home with it and went through the wasp cloud. Did some swatting. Was like, oh, stupid wasps. I get home and my beard is buzzing at me. So I reach in and I find that my beard has entangled a wasp and has cut it in half.
Yes.
And I'm not kidding here. This wasp was bisected in my beard, my tangled up beard. So at full power, my beard can kill actual living things. Deathwing is fake. He doesn't exist. He is pixels. My beard can kill real living things. My beard wins. But
you sir are amazing.
I should say that right now, to be fair, I don't have a beard.
Well,
I have shaved.
It looks like you have something there.
It's mostly like really stubbly 5 o'clock shadow. Well, I am Italian. I grow hair quickly. That's actually one of the things that I was complaining about is that I don't speak the language, I can't cook the food, and I don't even have the cool accent, and I'm not even dark. Like, my hair's black, but my skin's really pale, my eyes are green. I got almost nothing from Italy, except that I'm a hairy person. Like, I'm kind of like a Sasquatch. So, thanks for that, Gene.
Hey, you know what? But it makes you legendary in that respect, and that's more than I can certainly say. So, thank you for coming on. Before you go, I just want to make sure that anybody listening knows that they can find 3 of your books, Things That Never Were, Bottled Demon, and At Last Atlantis on Amazon.com, and is it still on Selfie?
Yes, it is still on Selfie.
Okay.
I should point out one thing.
Yes.
Things That Never Were, I don't see a cent from anyone buying that because it's out of print. I am someday going to put it back out, but for right now, it's a good book. I like it. Go ahead and buy it, and by all means, tell people about it. I just don't see any money from it. So you buy the other 2 first, and then if you just feel like buying another book, then go ahead and buy Things.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, please, everyone, do this. Help our man out here. He gives us so much, and the very least that we can do is support him and the things that he creates for us. You can also read his latest musings on all things Blizzard at blizzardwatch.com, and of course on the Blizzard Watch podcast. And follow him on Twitter at Matthew W. Rossi. Before we go, do you have any other plugs you want to get out there?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, by all means, sign up on the Blizzard Watch Patreon and give us like a $1 a month. Every little bit helps. There you go. That's perfect. We're going to be doing Blizzard Watch people are going to be at BlizzCon this week. I am not going to be there. I know this is after BlizzCon, but if you were there, I hope you got to meet some of them. They're all good people, and talk to them about whatever. They're seriously, like everyone who works at Blizzard Watch is just a dream to work with. They're good people. Excellent. Even Alex. Excellent. All right, Matthew. Well, I can't thank you enough, honestly, for coming on and being my first guest here on Unshackled Fury. Who knows? Maybe my last. But really, I appreciate you coming on, and certainly look forward to all that you have in store for us in the future. So, Mr. Matthew Rossi, everyone. Thank you.